ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम तत्सत्। Yeah. So we've been discussing about prioritizing in spiritual life. That is the topic going on. So we saw that we are going to consider only the prioritizing from the angle of what is suitable for us in a given moment or a given stage in our life. So what kind of spiritual practice can support us in our journey towards purification of mind as a necessary condition for jnana, enlightenment, moksha. So we are seeing only in that, and we said we are not going to discuss the prioritizing aspects of spiritual tech that is meant for getting things done. In other words, in the technical word for that is kamya karma. So we are not going to discuss kamya karma. We are going to discuss the different aspects, the different types, major types that come under karma and upasana that prepares us, and the category of karma and upasana, we will look into that, that prepares us for jnana. So this is what we are going to discuss. So broadly, we can understand the entire gamut of spiritual knowledge into two categories. The approaches which use the mind, different aspects of the mind, that address different issues we face in the mind, body, life, etc. Either through active rituals and practices that involve the organs of action, organs of perception, and our intellect, mind, will, emotions, etc. Or that involves only meditation, concentration, predominantly mind. Mind plus action, predominantly mind, only mental action. Mental action, verbal action, physical action. Manasikam, vachikam, kayikam. Mental action, verbal action, physical action. Right? So verbal action, physical action, we can club together. So mental and physical activities that promote chitta shuddhi. What is chitta shuddhi? We already saw extensively in our classes about chitta shuddhi under the category of developing the sadhana chatushtaya, the fourfold qualification for the mind to attain jnana. So we saw that. Now, what happens for a person who is not interested in moksha? So this purushartha is there, right? So this is a problem, because we said when we are going to decide our approach and choice, approach towards and choice of the spiritual practices, knowledge and practices, we have to begin with complete self-acceptance, total self-acceptance, in the sense here I'm talking about the functional self. Me as I am right now, the body condition, my lifestyle conditions, my most natural priorities. When I am thrown in a situation, because life throws me in situation, my prarabdha karma or whatever is my karma or my destiny, what let us say, throws me in a situation. Just like how I find myself being born in a body to a certain parents, in a certain community, in a certain society, in a country, etc., where I feel, I am here. It's a choiceless, completely choiceless. I am. This is my capital. This is what I am given. So right. So similarly, in different situations in life, we find ourselves thrown in situations. So there are certain things that we can decide, we can engineer, and we can tweak a little bit. And there are a lot of things we can't do absolutely anything about. It is just, life throws you into those situations. You just have to face them, right? So we have this. So the life situation, the external situation, my internal situation in terms of my attitude towards the external situation, my attitude towards myself, and the most natural goals that pop up in my heart, my ambitions, my goals, my desires, and my attitude towards those desires. Just because I have a desire, I may not be comfortable pursuing the desire. I may have conflict with the desire, or I may feel ashamed that I am having the desire, or I may feel very proud I'm having a great desire and I may pursue that. Or instead, I may have two conflicting desires. I may have a desire emotionally in one way, but intellectually, because I have studied something, the Shastra says something, my Guru says something, the community says something, the social moral codes of the society say something, I think this is what I should desire. So I push myself to want that. I impose that goal upon myself. Then there is a conflict. I impose the goal upon myself, but something inside me is not clicking, it's not agreeing. It's like there is no juice. When I pursue, there are some goals. When I pursue those goals, there is juice. In the sense, I'm excited. My whole system flows towards that goal from a deeper level, in a more integral way. There are some goals which I have to impose upon myself, and I understand this is right, and I have to wait for my system to catch up. I have to wait for my emotions to catch up. I have to wait for my sense faculties and the mind and the skill set to catch up. I will have to wait sometimes for my life situation to catch up to allow me to pursue that goal. So all these things are there. So we have to take into consideration all these factors, my internal environment, my external environment, the relationship between my internal environment and external environment. I have to accept my current situation as it is. That is my reality. So this is my capital. This is what I have to work with. If I am going to deny that and impose something artificially, with a small aspect of the mind, what we call as ego, from the egoistic mind based on self-image or whatever, if I'm going to impose a goal which is like a tip of the iceberg, the whole iceberg under the water, there's a little tip of the iceberg, right? So like that, this egoistic mind, my conscious result oriented mind, whatever concepts or fancies I have is there, it's there on the surface. So if I impose that on my system and I say, this is what I have to do it, this has to be done. It's called as what I would consider as two ways, either as a fake value or a fake inspiration. The value might be genuine value, but a fake inspiration. I try to live up to a value for which I am not ready. I think this value is meaningful. I understand the importance of this value. For example, brahmacharya. I understand the importance of brahmacharya. And I read about brahmacharya, the practice of brahmacharya by Swami Shivananda, the power of brahmacharya and all that by Swami Vivekananda's lectures on brahmacharya, Raja Bhartrihari, Vairagya Satakam, all those things I see. And then I get very pumped up about brahmacharya. And then there is one big brahmachari who comes, whom I happen to meet in some Rishikesh or somewhere. And then he, he's doing all these special practices to preserve his brahmacharya, right? So he's doing these special practices to preserve his brahmacharya. And I get pumped up with all that. And then I say, I am going, but I don't examine my most natural inclinations. How strong is my samskara for, for wanting a partner, or, for the desire for sexual pleasure? What is my samskara for that? How strong it is? These things. And also these people who are non-vegetarians for generations, they're non-vegetarians for generations, thousands and thousands of years. So genetically they are prone to eating meat, and their whole system, their gut bacteria, everything is set for that. Whole childhood till the 25 or 30, and overnight they become vegan. Some inspiration, none, then they struggle a lot. Similarly, in brahmacharya, it's so I may be inspired, but when I prioritize that, I also have to be practical. So when I take up a value for which I am not ready, I'm not physically ready, I'm not emotionally ready, and my lifestyle wise, the expectations, the social expectations are, I know, for based on that, they are all not geared up for a Naishtika brahmacharya. But I just go and take the diksha of Naishtika brahmacharya. Try very hard, 10 years, 15 years. When the person is 55 years old, 60 years old, 65 years old, meets some girl who is 15 years, who is like 20 years, 21 years old, gets carried away. It's a big mess. And there is a lot of, this happens a lot. There is a lot of social stigma around the person. There is a lot of mudslinging. There is a lot of losing face, psychological trauma. Then sometimes there is homosexuality. There are frustrations, all kinds of things. All this mess, if you go to Rishikesh, you can see this kind of places and ashrams. You can see a lot of mess because of fake inspiration. The value is a great value. Brahmacharya is extremely helpful for jnana. The value is a genuine value. It's not a fake value, but the inspiration is fake. I pump up the inspiration. I can't keep on pumping up a value in me and try to live up to that. That doesn't work. And then there are fake values. For example, there is, I have to, for beauty, I know, but I don't know in spiritually if anybody has experienced a fake spiritual value. If somebody can give an example, will be useful. Fake spiritual value could be like, I should be completely selfless. I should speak the truth. So wherever in the situation, no matter what is the context, there is relevance or not, I should speak the truth. So when you are very inspired about, so the fake value of speaking the truth, fake value of non-violence, for example, that is very famous. So we have this famous personality who said, when somebody comes to kill you, you have to just submit yourself, allow yourself to be killed. When the aggressive barbarians and come to rape your women, all the women should allow themselves to get raped. In India, during the partition of India, this leader said that. This is very famous for non-violence. So this kind of fake non-violent value. So non-violent, when you don't understand properly, you only say ahimsa paramo dharma, then the second line is dharma himsa tataivacha. They don't understand that. So there is a fake non-violence as a value. There is fake truth as a value. Keep on going and telling all kinds of things on people's face and making which is not relevant, which is not appreciated, which doesn't give any useful result, which makes people feel bad. This every all of us, all of us, when we are very young, when we are very inspired about a value, we take a fake value. We don't understand that value in its entire context, in its entire package. Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat, hitam bruyat, na bruyat, satyam apriyam. Speak the truth. Speak the truth in an acceptable way. Speak the truth, only that truth which is useful. If you speak that, it should be useful for the person. The truth, speaking the truth always goes with non-violence. And do not speak what is lie. Just because you have to make sure that the person is not hurt, you don't have to say a lie. So this whole package goes, it's a very sophisticated thing. And similarly, in non-violence, we have to see non-violence for who. The non-violence for sannyasi is different. A non-violence for a brahmachari is different. A non-violence for a householder is different. A non-violence for a person committed to knowledge and purely to knowledge is different. And non-violence for a person committed to administration and social welfare and the one who is a ruler, one who is a warrior, his non-violence is different. The non-violence for a businessman is different. It's extremely, it's totally, the desha kala patra, every value that we see has a desha kala patra, where, for who, at what period of time, for that person, and what period of time in the society, etc. Right? So, and for what purpose, in what context, all that goes with the value. So, understanding a value in its genuine value, the true value of a value and the true relevance of a value is a growing understanding. So, it's something that we get better and better at as we try to understand it more, and we are open and we observe ourselves, we observe around, and we are very aware of what is going on, what is happening as a result of practicing that value. When we do all that, we grow in our understanding of how we understand that value and internalize that value and how we practice that. Right? So this applies for all the values. So fake spiritual values are there. Then fake inspiration of correct values are there. And then there are these in one religion, it's very famous. There is a saint who lived in Italy. It's called absolute poverty. It's about poverty and suffering. There is another saint who lived in Kolkata. That one who was officially called a saint in her religion. So she glorified suffering. That is a fake value. So glorifying suffering is a fake value. So in Sanatana Dharma and in genuine spirituality, whenever we see the true masters, and also when we use our common sense, there is absolutely no point in glorifying suffering. So by glory, the spirituality, we are already suffering enough. The samsara as it is enough suffering. So on top of that, why should we make suffering into a virtue in order to feel spiritual? So suffering need not be converted into a virtue to feel spiritual. And it is not spiritual. What happens is it actually it increases our tamas, increasing the tamas. So what is increasing the tamas will take us away from truth. So as we saw, the context in which we are prioritizing our spiritual practices, our approach and everything, when we are trying to understand, when we imbibe the spiritual values, we have to see at what stage we are, whether it is suitable, etc. And is it useful? So how do we design a spiritual practice or a value is useful? It should contribute to Chitta Shuddhi. That is the marker. A person who is growing in Chitta Shuddhi becomes more and more happy, becomes more and more alert, becomes more and more realistic and objective. See, there is being realistic and objective in the sense a person becomes increasingly available to reality as it is. In every situation, there are natural laws which take care of a situation, and then there is our subjective projection on a situation. Somebody is having a stomach pain. So if you know medicine, or if you have access to some medicine or a medical professional, you see what can be done about the stomach pain. Oh, this stomach pain is it's all because of the bad karma, my past some karma, so I have to suffer this. So there is this vicarious pleasure. I met, I was, when I was counseling a person, that woman, she told me, I am I am enjoying pain because my life is so bland. Like she has everything, enough money and all that. My life is so bland. I'm not feeling anything. It just mechanical, just goes on. It's so bland. Only when I feel some pain or when I suffer emotionally, I am feeling something that is intense. So for that sake, I am trying to create situation where I suffer more and where I have pain. I was surprised. I have never come across this kind of things. When you go to the West, you have all kinds of weird things that you come across. So this woman told me that. It's just amazing. I was like, uh, I did not even think about this as a possibility. I have studied that technically. This is called tamasic buddhi. So glorifying suffering and pain and sadness is a tamasic pravritti. It's a tamasa pravritti. So whenever something is connected with tamo guna, it is going to cloud our jnana. It is going to cloud our understanding. It is going to take us more and more into the subjective realm of imagination and let us reinforce our ignorance and take us away from truth. It is going to reinforce ignorance and increase the covering over our mind, our buddhi, that will make it more and more difficult to be available for the truth. So what is Chitta Shuddhi? Readiness for Jnana. That is how we understand Chitta Shuddhi. So when we are approaching this, we have to keep the concept of Chitta Shuddhi in the mind. Chitta Shuddhi means increasing in Sattva Guna, reducing Tamo Guna, reducing Rajo Guna, and increasing Sattva Guna. This is what it is in one line. So over a period of time, we have to increase it. So some amount of Rajo Guna or the passionate, activity-oriented aggression to a certain extent is good for the purpose of shaking us out of a tamas or an inertia or a laziness. It could be intellectual laziness, mental laziness, physical laziness. Excuse me. So, to shake us out of a tamasic mode, some rajoguna is useful. And eventually, we have to arrive at sattvaguna. So anything that increases tamoguna is going to increase my ignorance. Avarana is going to increase. Anything that increases rajoguna is going to increase my restlessness and non-availability because of restlessness, non-availability because of ignorance. So the power of ignorance becoming more is the result of tamoguna. The power of restlessness becoming more is the result of rajoguna. So these two we have to handle in so many ways. So glorifying suffering and pain cannot take us towards God or whatever, because it is going to increase tamoguna. So the spiritual laws, so when we prioritize, we have to understand certain universal principles in our spiritual growth that deal with our spiritual growth, because it's like physics, it's like science. These are the laws. This is how it works. So if something is, we are hearing about something, somebody promises some result, somebody promises some great progress and very quick progress or whatever, it's very simple. Analyze it based on what is the practice, what am I supposed to do, and what is the result, and what is the process, what is the promised result. When we analyze that based on sattva, rajas, and tamas, we can very clearly see just using common sense, is it going to increase my tamas or is it going to increase my sattva? Is it going to increase my rajas or is it going to increase my sattva? Is it going to take me more towards sattva and chitta shuddhi, which is sadhana chatushtaya, or is it going to reinforce my, because why a person is allured or attracted to such tamasic suggestions, these fake values, like glorifying suffering is a fake spiritual value, glorifying poverty is a fake spiritual value, glorifying indiscriminate non-violence is a fake spiritual value, glorifying resigning to fate and not putting enough effort towards success in our endeavors is a fake spiritual value. So when somebody is, marketing these things, or we tend to think like that. So there are two ways. We might hear a nice discourse, but we will interpret it according to our fancy. So that is when satsanga becomes useful. So when we have a satsanga, we have a debate and discussion. We have an opportunity to examine what kind of conclusions have we arrived at, both consciously and subconsciously. If we have arrived at it subconsciously without our realizing it, during a discussion, we will suddenly realize, oh, this is what has been behind in the back of my mind for me. This is what was making me do like this. We will suddenly realize it. We will wake up to our error. So when we wake up to our error, we have an opportunity to correct it. So that is exactly why satsanga is useful, because the discussions will make us become conscious of whatever mistakes we have been doing inadvertently without our attention. Without realizing, we might be thinking and acting in a wrong track. That is without our knowledge, reinforcing. We'll be thinking, I'm doing for so long, but I don't see any result. I don't, feel that I'm progressing. I feel, stuck. I feel frustrated. These are all signs. That means subconsciously you have picked up something that is not in line with the actual realistic spiritual principles. Then we have to discuss and reorient it. No matter from whom you have heard it. We might have heard something from a great Mahatma, but we might have understood it wrongly. So we don't know. So that is why a Shrotriya, or a person who has done proper study, tries to have a proper Nishta in his or her own life, and who is mentally at the ego level and mental level and emotional level completely devoted to the spiritual path, who has also studied properly. So this such a person, when you have a dialogue with, it will be very easy to wake up to those errors that we have in the back of our, that is driving our actions without our knowledge, right? So we saw about fake values and fake inspirations of even the correct values. Now we saw fake values. Now we'll talk about the fake inspiration. Fake inspiration, like, it's because we are not either conscious of our current realistic estimate. We don't have a realistic estimate about our capabilities, physical capability, emotional capability, mental capability, intellectual capability, and the support that we might realistically get from our lifestyle and from our life situations. Because to a certain extent, we can put effort, but to a certain extent, we have to accept what is. It's a fine balance. It's a fine balance of accepting our situation and also trying to do our best regarding what we can change. It is important not to make, when we are starting our spiritual journey, it is important, very important, not to make life into a constant struggle. If we are constantly struggling against our emotions, constantly struggling against the people around us, we are constantly struggling against the society around us, we are constantly struggling against the government, we are struggling against the business, we are against everything. There are these activist kind of people. They are all the time against everything. They are always worked up, and they don't relax, and they are not available to examine. So that is not going to help. You are constantly struggling. Then what happens? We are stuck in the realm of effort. When we are stuck in the realm of effort too much, that is restlessness, that is vikshepa. That is going to get us too much invested in outcomes. When we are too much invested in outcomes, that is going to reinforce our cycle of klesha and karma. Klesha means the pain-causing afflictions, likes, dislikes, clinging to life, egoism, our ignorance. These things get reinforced. And the force of action, result, the desire for result prompting us into action. Again, result. giving importance for the result. So we become very highly outcome oriented, result oriented. So this karma, we become very restless, and we are stuck in this karmic, in the karma cycle. And we might do more and more mistakes. We might get more and more involved. We might get involved with unnecessary things. Then the priority gets confused inside. We don't know what to prioritize. Then suddenly everything looks important, and we get overwhelmed. And then when it's too much, you get depressed. So all this comes because the person is constantly struggling. So constant struggle against to everything around us, constant struggle against our own nature, that is not helpful. So it is very important to find the right amount of struggle that challenges our comfort zones in a healthy way, just the right amount of struggle. That's called sadhana. Sadhana is just the right amount of struggle, the right amount of effort in keeping with the goal. Sadhya, the goal. The goal which is appropriately chosen. The goal that is understood and chosen with a clear understanding of my aptitude towards that goal, adhikari. Right? The goal, that is the Vishaya. Me, the adhikari, the one who seeks the goal, the seeker, the sadhaka. Then for that, I choose the right means to that goal, sadhana. And there is a connection. There must be a connection. There must be a connection, and I should understand the connection, which means the practicality between the sadhana and the goal, between me, the adhikari, and the goal, the sadhya, and between me and the sadhana. I must be able to practice that sadhana I have chosen. And the sadhana must be something that gives me that goal. I want a sattvic mind, but I am practicing Vamachara Tantra. That do not go together. Vamachara Tantra is a tamasic practice. It does not lead to, and I'm practicing black magic tantra and all that. That doesn't lead to sattvic mind. So it is no connection. So if a person, so then I have to gradually change. If I am already born into a tradition where I am only given this Vamachara Tantra from childhood, then I have to see how I can grow from Vamachara Tantra towards Yogic Tantra. And from Yogic Tantra, I become sattvic and then go towards Jnana. So there is a track. So even Vamachara Tantra is meant for making a person more and more. So it is making it. There are two kinds of Vamachara Tantra. We'll go into that in some other context. It is meant for either making a person more yogic and gunatita, or it is meant for a gradual acceptance and transformation of the basal instinct, the instinctive mind, the personality, the instinctive personality to be transformed in a way to accommodate a sattvic sadhana and gradually take the person towards the sattvic sadhana. They say Pashu, Veera, Divya, there are different categories. If you read the Kularnava Tantra, etc., they talk about the progress of the levels of a sadhaka, a Pashu sadhaka, Veera sadhaka, and then there is a Divya sadhaka. So there is a different level. So that based on Tamas, Rajas, Tattva, right? There is a progress. So even in Vamachara, left-hand Tantra, there is a progress. So no matter what is the sadhana we take, all the sadhanas are gradually taking a person towards the readiness for jnana cultivation, no? Sadhana chatushtaya. No matter what you take from Sanatana Dharma, we have to find its relevance for the goal of Chitta Shuddhi. Right. So now, if I am choosing a sadhana, I read about, in Giranda Samhita, I read about a pranayama, 16, 64, 32. Inhale for 16 seconds, hold for 64 seconds, exhale for 32 seconds, along with the 3 bandhas, Mahabandha. This will open the Sushumna Nadi, Kundalini, all blah, blah, blah. Right. Read. Very excited. So now I want to raise my Kundalini in order to get Laya Samadhi. That's all. I just read the book and I probably heard some lecture. Now you have online Kundalini Diksha. So there is some guy who convinced me about it. So I'm told to do this So I say, okay, what is the fastest way to take the Kundalini to Sahasrara? You have people like that. I was also like that. My we started 18, 20. Like the first tendency, when you are a Rajasic, very ambitious person, you are excited about something. The tendency is how to get there fast. What is the fastest way? There is even one very famous yogi who kept advertising his version of yoga. Rocket path to realization. Rocket path to self-realization. That is the term used. It's okay, rocket path, but a person who goes in a rocket has to prepare a lot in order to take the rocket. So not everybody can go in a rocket. So if you want to go for a Kailasha Yatra, so you need a lot of medical certificate. You need practice. If you are going for some trekking, or if you're, let us say, if you are going for some mountaineering, they say you have to first go up to 5,000 feet, 10,000 feet. There is a level. There is a procedure for preparing you. If you want to climb Mount Everest, there is a procedure for preparing you, right? So you go through a process. So similarly, when I'm very result oriented, I want to see, okay, I want to raise Kundalini. Now, what is the relevance of my Kundalini? Is Kundalini necessary? Is it essential, or it is just helpful? Is my body okay for Kundalini? Okay, I have to do Nadi Shuddhi 6 months. My Sushumna is going to be opened. I can do 16, 64, 32 pranayama, right? So can I start right away? Should I force myself and become breathless? And no matter what is the struggle, I have to maintain this ratio and this length of inhalation, 16, 64, 32, I have to maintain somehow. 4 times a day, waking sunrise, midday, sunset, midnight. 20 cycles each time. Pranayama, I'm going to do. I go sit in go find and I do a room. Then I arrange for some guy to bring cow milk and all that, and then right. Now, can I handle that? Can I okay, after I do that, when I come back, so even if I handle that, so can I handle that? Can my body handle that? Should I start the same ratio right away, or is there a process of working my way towards that? So the moment I am ambitious, my judgment is going to get clouded. The moment my judgment is clouded, I am going to make a mess. So the sadhana that I take, it has to suit my constitution. The mantra that I take has to suit my constitution. Somebody gives some big Swami comes, and nowadays it happens. They take one Kalyana Mandapam, this marriage hall, community hall. 200 people sitting there. More. I'm being generous. They're like usually 500,000 people sitting there. The Swami will initiate everybody in that mantra. All of you repeat mantra. So everybody chants the same mantra. There are some ambitious people who will end up chanting in lakhs of times. If the mantra does not suit our constitution, whether you like it or not, I'm not enjoying doing that mantra, but that is a big Swami. I was so lucky to go and meet that Swami. He's a great master. He has so many powers. So, and this mantra has come from him. Somehow I have to do. Whether I like it or not, whether I am gelling with that or not, whether I resonate with that or not, I have to do, and I push myself to do. There are people like a blind devotion. Now, there are signs it is showing, my digestion goes wrong, I get constipation, or things in my life start going wrong, or I get very frustrated, or at least the minimum bad result is I don't like it, or it makes me too excited and then I get mad, I lose my balance. All this happens. These are all signs. So any imbalance in any direction is a sign. So it suits my constitution or not, I have to see. Then I have to take steps to correct it or change the mantra, right? So now the sadhana that we take has to suit the sadhaka who is me. My adhikaritvam, am I qualified for that sadhana? Gayatri Paramo Mantraha. Gayatri is the greatest mantra. I happen to have a female body, but I will do Gayatri Mantra. Om chanting 21 times, 108 times, 1000 times Om chanting. Chanting only pranava according to Mantra Shastra is meant for a sannyasi. But I am not a sannyasi. I have a family, I have a kid, I have a job, and I have, probably the worst kind of job, like an IT job. or something, or some finance job, or some public relations job, where I have to constantly meet people and go into different kind of situations where there is a bar, there are I have to meet people in bars and pubs, and there is a lot of meat around me, and there is a lot of tamasic people around me, mean people around me. I have to deal with all that day in and day out for 12 hours every day. But I will come and do pranava japa. I will get up 3 o'clock in the morning and I will do 1008 Om. And I am a female. If we do all that, it's going to create a huge havoc and conflict in my system. Because when we take a mantra sadhana, for example, like how I said for fake values, the mantra sadhana should suit my constitution. A woman cannot chant, a woman, especially a woman in the menstruating period, in the age, in the age, fertile age, whose uterus is active, they cannot chant Gayatri or pranava a lot, only pranava. And a householder with a busy life cannot chant only pranava. Like that, we have rules. So, and a non-vegetarian cannot, a heavy non-vegetarian cannot chant Gayatri beyond a certain level. Probably they can do, and if it's a male, a non-vegetarian like a Kshatriya, they can chant Gayatri, but not a lot. So if they are going to convert it into a tapasya, they have to change their diet. They have to change their lifestyle. Everything goes, when I have to be very aggressive, warrior, I cannot do, I have, let us say I'm a boxer, professional boxer. I cannot do a lot of hatha yoga that will make, hatha yoga is supposed to make everything loose, stretchable. It makes you in a certain way where you are prepared for meditation. I will lose my aggressive edge. If I am a Tai Chi Chuan master, probably I can do a lot of hatha yoga. If I am a wushu or some Wing Chun master or something, I can do probably a lot of hatha yoga. But if I am a professional boxer, I cannot do hatha yoga in the way that it should be done. So I can do a little bit of asana. So there is a limit to which I can do, where it is useful only for relieving my stress so that it helps me. Everything has its limit, context, suitability. So me, the sadhaka, constitutionally, I must be qualified or appropriate for the sadhana. So if I use qualification, it may hurt your ego. You'll say, what is this? Am I not qualified? Am I too inferior? I don't mean that. When I say qualified, it means aptitude. Are you designed? Is my design, does it suit that? Does that, I will put it like that. Does that sadhana suit my design? So the sambandha, the connection between the sadhana and the sadhaka, connection. Adhikari. Adhikaritvam, it is called. So one of the greatest principles, spiritual principles that we use in our Sanatana Dharma, in Vaidika Dharma, is Adhikari Bheda. Everything is not given to everybody. So this is the source of all the controversies. People make it political, they make it into a social thing issue, political issue. It's not that. It's just a simple technical appropriateness. Does my constitution, both physical constitution and subtle constitution, sthula and sukshma constitution, and my lifestyle, my way of life, my culture, all this, for all these factors and the objective reality of a spiritual practice, technical, how it affects a person, how it takes a person in a certain direction, what kind of, because when we take up a spiritual practice, it is for the body and the mind. We have to understand this clearly. So we have three things in us. The consciousness, nothing happens to it. Me, the one, the conscious one, the conscious being, that because of which the mind functions, that because of which the body functions, that which keeps me alive, that is consciousness, right? Now, then there is the mind and the energy, the vibrations, that is the subtle body, the emotions, sensations, all that, tendencies, desires, subtle body, and the physical body. So we have Sthula Sarira, then we have the Sukshma Sarira, Karana Sarira, and we have the consciousness, which is Chaitanya. This is what we are. So all the practices that could either karma or upasana, whether they are active practices or meditative practices, all of them are manipulating the body and the mind, one of these two or both of these two. So if it is manipulating the body, it is manipulating the energy and the mind. Sometimes it is directed only at the mind, and it has its consequences on the energy, it has its consequences on the body. So all sadhana is only for the body and the mind. There is nothing called soul. What is soul? Soul is nothing but sukshma sarira. The soul is a problematic word, because we tend to think there is some little ball of light somewhere around called soul. No, it's nothing like that. It's an English word that is very misleading. So when we use our technical words, it's all very precise, very defined, well defined. So if I are going to use the word soul, we have to redefine the soul as jivatma, which is nothing but the vijnanamaya with the sukshma sarira, that is the jivatma, that is what is soul. So the mind and the associated energies, which is kept together by the power of consciousness, that is the soul, if you want to define soul like that, which is sukshma sarira, the reincarnating person, the one who goes from body to body, that is sukshma sarira. So all the practices are addressing the physical body or the subtle body, and it has its repercussions on my lifestyle, it has its repercussions on my relationships, it has its repercussions on my relationship with the world around me. So is it appropriate for who I am as a person and what I have to do in terms of my commitments? Is it appropriate at this time of my life in relationship with my commitments, in relationship with my duties? So will it make me regret, or will it make me, will it bring more chaos into my life, or is it going to be appropriate and take me more and more in a harmonious way towards Chitta Shuddhi without rocking the boat too much, right? So that's how we have to see. So the sadhana and me, the adhikari, this is called adhikari bheda, the suitability of a spiritual practice for a person considered in a complete way, both physically, emotionally, mentally, intellectually, attitudinally, at the ego style, at the ego level, and socio-culturally, in all, unprofessionally, in all these aspects, you take a person and then see if that practice is suitable for this person. So the qualification or is the relevance of the practice, nobody is putting you down. There is nothing that, if you do Gayatri Mantra, you are great, and if you are not doing Gayatri Mantra, you are less. Nothing like that. All sadhanas are equally powerful, provided the sadhana matches. So that sadhana, which is the most appropriate for me as an individual with all my package, that is the most powerful sadhana for me. So that's how we have to choose. So when we prioritize sadhana, it is very important to understand this and not grade practices as very powerful practice, less powerful practice. Oh, that one can give you liberation very fast. This one can give you this. These are all, this loose satsanga talk. There are two kinds of satsanga. So there is the satsanga which is technically consistent, where the discussion happens according to a proper methodology, according to Shastra, and they use the words very carefully. Then there is this loose pop satsanga, where they throw all kinds of things to impress people. They may share their excitement, that becomes arthavada. So we have to see whether somebody is just sharing their excitement or they really mean what they say, and then we have to analyze it based on some standard, some objective standard. So this loose satsanga is bound to happen, because in every domain of life and every domain of knowledge, there is systematic, professional, and rigorous approach. There are people who follow that. There are groups who follow that. There are contexts where the rigor is maintained, and then there are contexts where it is loose, where there is loose discourse, where there is careless talking, careless thinking. Every context, you go to software, coding, you go to spiritual practices, you go to management, anywhere you go to the sports, everywhere you go, there is the rigorous version, then there is the loose version. So so we have to, based on the certain basic principles, when we arrive at a satsanga, we have to see whether, we have to know whether it is a casual, loose place or a rigorous place. So we have to develop that discernment to see, first we have to be rigorous. How can we do that? Only when our approach, when we study, when we choose the practices, when we apply the understanding in our everyday life, and we do the practices, and when we watch ourselves, when we watch our thoughts, when we examine our nature, are we applying the rigor or are we being loose? There is a sentence called Pramada Vai Mrityuhu, carelessness is death. I think it comes in Kathopanishad. So my Guruji keeps on telling me, carelessness is death. Pramada Vai Mrityuhu keeps on telling me, very important. So, if I am committed to the rigor in my choice of the practice and my application of my knowledge and being dedicated in my nishta, when I am maintaining rigor in my nishta, I will develop the discernment to see, to judge whether a place or a satsanga or an interaction is casual and loose or it has rigor. I will know. So if it is casual and loose, I don't have to take everything to heart. I can have a smooth this interaction and get away from that. Okay, I had a nice time. I had some nice sattvic food. Thank you. Keep going. Oh, bhajan was good. That's it. We can keep going. We don't have to take everything. So there may be 1 or 2 points that matches our rigor. So we don't have to take everything simply because somebody is in a pedestal of a guru or a swami or a or a upanyasaka or whatever. We don't have to take everything that they say. It's all right. That is why it is very important. If I maintain rigor in my own life, in my own practice, I will develop the discernment, the viveka, to see and the discernment to take what is appropriate and not take seriously what is loose discourse. Right? And I can always examine. There is Shastra. There is all the knowledge. For example, there is what a certain text is saying about something. You can go and ask Chat GPT. It tells. Amazing. If you want information, it's very easy. Then you know what information to take. I asked, what are the 9 contexts? List down all the 9 contexts in which Tattvamasi is explained in Chandogya Upanishad. I asked Bard. 1 minute, everything is there with 3 different kinds of explanations. Amazing. So if you want to access information, it is on the fingertips, literally on the fingertips these days. So information is available. It's not a problem. The problem is my dedication and my attitude and the level of discernment that I can develop in order to take the right information, in order to be able to discern between the right and the wrong information, and in order to have the right attitude with which I take in the information, and the level of discipline, mental discipline I can have in order to process the information in a way that takes me that keeps me on my track towards my sadhya, my goal. Right. So this rigor is very important. So there is this discernment that we develop while we maintain our rigor, and this comes from study, from reflection, from self-observation. This is how we do that. This aspect of the choice of the spiritual practice in a way that is appropriate, the concept of adhikari bheda, to appreciate the concept of adhikari bheda for the purpose of choosing the spiritual practices, for the purpose of the right measure of the practice and the context of the practice, and for the purpose of minimizing the conflict between my spiritual life and my everyday materialistic laukikam. That what we say, Vedic anmikam, we say anmikam and laukikam. My inner life and my outer life should have minimal conflict. So that is the way in which we have to do. Or if I want to have certain special experiences, if I want to devote more time for a certain different kind of an inner experience, I have to temporarily create a context of isolation like a retreat or whatever. And in that context, I can go a little bit deeper. I can sustain certain states. I can do a little more sadhana, like, increasing my bank account like that. I can do that and then come back. My lifestyle, my constitution, my sadhana, and the goals that I choose and I strive towards, my ultimate goal might be moksha. My immediate objectives have to gel with my realistic situation as a person. So we keep this all in mind in our assessment of what we are doing right now. and in our assessment, in our future interactions with the spiritual world, with the Shastra, with gurus, with the information that is available, and whatever choices that we are going to make for our spiritual growth. Yeah. So we have another 6 minutes. We can ask some questions, and after the questions, I will do the Shanti mantra and close the session. If something strike a chord to what you're doing or what you came across, and you want,
I have given access to unmute you. Yes, I have given access to unmute everyone. Sorry, sir, no, so you can please unmute and ask the question.
Namaste, Yogeshji. This is Kannan.
Namaste. Yes.
Thank you for the class. And may I ask? I have 2 questions. I don't know if we have time, but I will just ask. One is that question 1 is importance of like seeing you in the class. I can see the forehead is so full. So importance of tilaka or vibhuti or those things. Is anything important? 1. 2 is in the class you mentioned about Kshatriya, like a little like non-vegetarian and Kshatriya. Kshatriya, in terms of who is Kshatriya is another thing, but yeah.
So nowadays we have to see based on the lifestyle, based on the job.
Sometimes if you can mention that, it would be
job
nice.
And constitution.
So 2 questions, yes.
Right. So about this Tilakam, Vibhuti, etc., because I grew up in this culture, the Shastra says, Dharma Shastra and a lot of saints, even the Siddhas, they say the forehead should not be empty. It doesn't have to be so dramatic like how it is in my forehead. Just a small dot should be okay. I found a situation, for example, if you come across a person wearing a burqa, Muslim, full burqa, so they have some problems in countries like France, and it apparently generates a lot of disharmony in the people around. People are like, what's wrong? Like some discomfort. Yeah? A full burqa, and there are certain issues. And if somebody wears a huge cross and comes, like Bible thumping people, it's on our face. I feel uncomfortable. Many people have feel. I heard in the West that, what's wrong with him? Why is he wearing such a huge cross? Is crazy or what? Similarly, as a Hindu, I go with a lot of Rudraksh mala, full forehead, vibhuti, kumkum, and everything. In Manhattan, or probably that's more cosmopolitan. If I walk in the middle of some, so we have to see the place. We have to see the place, the culture around. It's important not to rub too much with the society around us. So we don't have to be ashamed of our thing. So the rule, the recommendation is the forehead should not be empty. So what happened is one of my students had to go to office, and apparently it was drawing too much unnecessary attention. She was wearing the kumkum and going, and is drawing too much, and she was not comfortable, and everybody's asking. And somebody objected. It said, you're spoiling the professional air here. I don't want to name it as it's a Christian country, so it's a Christian intolerance. I don't want to call it that. Whatever it is, the people around are uncomfortable. The forehead should not be empty. What to do? I said, you take a little water in your hand or some oil, and then you chant your mantra, Mula mantra, and then place it in your forehead. It's not visible. Right? It's just there. That also can be done. So we have to decide. This is the dharma. So dharma is again desha kala patra, and we don't have to take it. We don't have to get too worked up and very fanatic about it. So it is good to put something on the forehead. That's it. So based on that, we have to use our common sense and apply. That's how I see it. I don't consider the way of exhibitionism like the ISKCON people do. I don't consider that as appropriate. Now I am in my room and I'm taking a class. This is my class and you're all there. So I'm like this. So if I go to a restaurant, for example, unless I want to show off as a guru, I am in some foreign country. Unless I want to show off as a guru, PR purpose. I'm going for a get together. I have to show off as a guru, then probably it's okay, all right. Or I am seen as a guru, so where I have to assert my identity or I have to assert my role, where my role is the defining aspect of that moment, then I can go like this. Otherwise, I'll not go like this. I'll just have a small chandan or something. And go, no, I am Indian, so a little chandan, nobody bothers. So if the other person is a Westerner, it's a Japanese or a Westerner or a white person, suddenly that person starts putting something on the forehead. Everybody, it attracts everybody's attention, unnecessary discussion. So they have to decide where, how. So it's an individual thing. We cannot impose it, blanket imposition. It is recommended to wear. Yeah. So we have to think about it, how it is.
Nandri, thank you.
Meat, Kshatriya meat. So for example, we have Yuga Dharma and Varna Dharma, right? So Varna, nowadays we have to take it based on Guna and Karma, the nature of the person and the job they are doing. So we take based on that, if a person is a warrior, a soldier, police or a sports person. For example, even in Ayurveda, you have Ajaswagandha Leghim. There is a Ashwagandha and Ajamamsam, which is goat, meat of a goat in a lehiam. They give that for certain kind of dhatu pushti or something. So I heard about that. So it is there. It is there in the Shastra. It is there. And it puts certain limitations on what kind of sadhana that person can do. And it's definitely not like how it is nowadays, that is eating meat every day, all kinds of meat. Every day you have a steak or a barbecue. It was not like that. So eating meat means in moderation, in a certain time and in a certain way, only for certain types of people with certain kind of jobs and lifestyle. If they feel the need, both physically, medically, and psychologically, then it's all right. But that is going to put a limit on what practices they can do. So they have to be okay with that.
All right, thank you. The next class I will ask more on the same question. I have something to clear, but
yeah, you can ask. You can say. I don't think anybody else is asking questions. Anybody else?
Yes. I have a question.
Okay, Kanan, next class. We'll address that.
Namaste.
Namaste.
In the practice of lighting lamp, I personally connect with more than one form of deity. So I place every god in front of the lamp and light it. At times I feel I am leaving that god or I am being partial towards the other god. All these thoughts start coming.
Can you explain it once more? You place every deity in front of the lamp.
Yes, sir.
So you light a lamp and then you take the murti or the picture and place it in front of the lamp.
No, sir, it is as it is. But which deity should I concentrate on? I get confused, or maybe I'm being partial towards other god. All these thoughts start coming up. And
Correct.
Which mantra should I chant? Which shloka should I chant while lighting the lamp?
I understand. Yes. So generally the recommendation is you have to have your Ishta Devata one. You will have to arrive at that. First, we have to understand all the forms and divinities are packaging of the same Ishvara, for the same Supreme Being. This is the front end. Let us say you are browsing the internet, right? You want to go and read some news. You have to use a browser. Google Chrome, Firefox, Brave, Adblock browser, Safari browser, Microsoft Edge. You have options. So you have a favorite browser based on how much memory it uses, the layout. It's a user interface, right? So do you have a confusion? The problem is because I understand this is only an user interface. I use an interface that is serving my purpose, right? The same thing with deities. Any divine form is only an user interface for a tattva. Unless you are into prayoga, which we are not dealing in this class. You are not into prayoga. We are into bhakti For the purpose of bhakti, any deity will do. You generally choose the one towards the form towards which you have the most natural inclination.
Yes.
What you can do is you can stop everything and just concentrate on the Lamb, just concentrate on the concept of God. Stop all the deities, only Lamb. This is my recommendation and my method. You can try it. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, no form, nothing. Forget all guilt. No God is going to be angry with you. They are not waiting. All the gods are not waiting there for your prayer. Don't worry about it. God doesn't need your prayer. You need God grace. That's why you're praying. All those, whatever shloka you are doing. So you take a week break from all the forms, only Lamb, and just sit there quietly with the idea of God.
Yes.
Concentrate on here in your heart. This area generally. Don't go into Anahata Chakra and all that. Don't get confused. Just generally keep your hand here. Be connected with your emotional center. That's all I mean. And from here, just think about the God. Let all the forms, whatever you did, all the confusion, it will come and go, come and go. Don't worry about it. Let it come and go. Half an hour, quiet. And then to that one supreme being who is reflected in all the forms, to that you offer a flower or whatever and then go away. That's it. 1 week, do only that.
Yes.
And you see how you feel at the end of it. And you will see that one will stand out, and you take only one, probably, you have shlokas, set of shlokas. You have been chanting for a long time. Just have a feel of it. Leave it, do some other work. Come back, take another shloka, have a feel of it. Leave it, go another work, some other work after 1 hour, 2 hour, you do a household work or whatever. Then look at another one in the evening, next day morning, with a gap, see which one resonates the most with you, choose that over. That's it. And then dump everything else. Doesn't matter.
Thank you.
Right. So that should be okay for today. I will finish with the Shanti Mantra. We will continue the discussion in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vadishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat. Thank you.
Namaste.